Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video we're going to be making a simple sort of object viewer, Tumbler, like you might find in Skyrim, or you might have seen it in Tomb Raider, the type of thing where you can go to your inventory or whatever and sort of tumble around an object and get a look at it in the 3D space. And I'm just here in the first person template. I've got the default first person character here open, and it's here that we're going to start. So the first thing we'll do is set up how exactly we're going to make this work. And to do this, we're going to have to disable the input from the player, obviously sort of semi-pause the game so that we can, disable the input from the player so we're not moving around when we're actually trying to tumble our object. So we'll get the tab key. Thought I'd use the tab key to be able to control this, and make a new variable. We'll call it is paused and make sure that it's a boolean. We're not going to be actually pausing the game because that will disable all of our input. We don't need to disable all of our input, just enough, just the player input, so that we're not interfering with what we're doing here. And then we'll just right click, we'll get our player controller, because there are a few nodes here that are going to help us out. For one, we need to show the mouse cursor whenever we're in our tab screen. So we'll just get out of our player controller here, type in show mouse cursor, and get the set node. And we will also need to come out of our character again, and we want misspelled it there. We want set ignore move input, and also set ignore look input. All right, and we'll connect all these up to our string, and just turn all these on, tick all of these boxes, and then we'll grab our is paused boolean here, holding B and click to get a branch, hook this up. And we'll also get a set, so hold an Alt and drag our variable, and set is paused at the end here, and we'll connect all this up. Then we'll grab these 4 nodes, duplicate them just like that, and uncheck each of these boxes. So we can use our tab key as a sort of toggle to enable and disable our tab screen, and make sure we get things right. So if is paused is true, then we want to set all of these to false, but if it is false, then we set all of these to true. And make sure that we connect our player controller like that. Alright, so we'll just hit compile just for the time being to make sure that everything is working so far so good. Copy this branch and our get node here, and we'll also come up here and grab our input axis turn and look up, as well as our jump, and also our move forward and move right. And we'll just, that's not what I want. Where's our, alright, we'll go down here, copy these nodes again. And we'll just paste this here for each of them. If paused is false, then we can do our inputs. So we'll just really quickly hook these guys up. There we go. Another couple. Just connecting these. It's just to make a check to see if we're in our tab screen. Then we'll hit compile and save. And then when we hit play, here we have our default character. It's not firing the yellow ball. I think there's something wrong with my Unreal install, but this is a fresh project straight out of the content pack. If you don't have the first person templates, by the way, you can come here to the editor, to the content browser, go to add new, then add feature or content pack, and you'll see it here in blueprint features, and you just hit add to project, and you'll get these files. I noticed that there wasn't it says spawn projectile, but there's no spawn actor node in the default one, so I think I might have to reinstall. But that's okay, we can proceed here sort of as is. So if we hit play, then we hit tab. Oh, I didn't do it for fire, of course. So we'll come here to fire, duplicate these guys. There we go. If paused is false, let's go into this montage here. So we'll compile again, and let's have another look. So if I hit tab, I can't move around, I can't jump, I can't fire, but I got the mouse cursor here, and if I hit tab again, then we're back in it. Alright, so we're ready to get going. We have our tab screen up. The next thing we'll do is sort of darken the background so that we don't, so that we can sort of tell the visual difference and sort of highlight what it is we're looking at. So up here, add components, it will add it to, I suppose it doesn't really matter, we'll add it to this capsule component, just a plane. Just like that. And in our viewport, we'll see our plane here. Let's just rotate this guy up 90 and we'll move it forward. We'll probably want to move it forward a fair distance and scale it up something huge, say 15. It looks really, really big, but it's not going to necessarily matter. It's just one plane. And we'll also have to make a material for it. So let's right-click in our content browser here, make a new material. We'll just call this black tint, open it up, and just very quickly hold in 3 and click to get a color, a 3 vector. Leave it black, plug this into base color, grab our material attributes here and set our blend mode to translucent so that we can see through it. And we can also go unlit because we're not, I suppose it doesn't necessarily matter, but we'll plug in our color into emissive anyway. Then grab a constant, plug this into opacity and set our opacity to something like 0.5. Then save that. And then back in our character here, we can set our plane to have our black tint. So we'll compile that, hit play, and we can sort of see how it looks here. Okay, so it's got collision on it, which we do not want. So we'll set this to no collision and hit play again. Okay, so it's kind of close to the player. There might be a better way to do this, but for now we'll just move it a little bit closer. Compile, we just want to get it in front of the ground there if we can, or we'll be locking the rotation, I suppose. Okay, with that done, with our screen set up kind of big, we'll get to our plane again. We'll add another component. This one, just a static mesh, and it's going to need to be in front of our plane a little bit. We'll put it up at sort of camera height. And for this, I think I'll use one of the meshes from my texture pack. I'll put a link to download this in the description. And as you see, it's probably going to be very, very big. So we want our, we'll set our rotation back to 0. Oh, that's our location, right? But our scale has to be really small. So we'll go 0.001. And again, position this sort of up here somewhere. And we'll give it a material. How about the gold material from the starter content? All right, then when we hit play, we have a little gold brick in front of us. We can make it a little bit bigger. 0.02. Yep, that should work for us. And just make sure it's not going to intersect our wall or anything. No, okay. And these two, by default, we'll set these to be not visible. All right, so back in our event graph, over here where we hit tab, we want to make these things visible when they're active and invisible when they're not. And likewise with the mesh and the gun, we will also make these visible and invisible in the opposite sort of way. So we'll drag in our components here, our plane and our static mesh, and then our mesh 1P and our FP gun, and we will set visibility on all of these guys. So set visibility on our mesh 1P and our FP gun, and then our plane and our static mesh. So connect these guys up. And there we go. So if we're not paused, then these can be visible. And we'll duplicate these two again. Hook these up. And connect up our components. No, that's not right. Hang on. I'm going to go opposites. All right, I'll just start over. There we go. If you alt-click on one of these nodes here, you'll disconnect what's already connected there. So that's how you can quickly sort of reset what you got plugged into stuff. So here we have, when we are not paused, we have our mesh and our gun visible, and our plane and our static mesh invisible, and the opposite for when we are paused. So we can test this out now. So if we hit play, then hit tab. I think I got things backwards. Let's have another quick look. Compile. So I've just inverted those values, and yep, there we are. So we got our little object showing up there in front of the screen with no inputs, and then we hit tab again. It's not being reset. Why is that? Okay, there we go. So our mesh 1P and FP gun, we set them visible when is paused is off, and our plane and our static mesh not visible when paused is off, and the inverse for the opposite. So just to test one more time. There we go. All right, so that's working as intended. Now the next thing, well, I suppose we should actually hide the HUD. Get player, actually we'll come out of the player controller, I think, and then get HUD. Yep, get HUD. And then we can set visibility or set actor hidden in game, maybe? No, I think it's actually show HUD. Yeah, set show HUD. All right, so we'll make a bit of space here for our for a new node and position it up here. Right, so we want to show HUD in the top one, not show HUD in the bottom one. Connect these guys up. And in fact, I'm going to move this down here so we sort of get a better look. Compile that, hit play. So you see a little crosshair there. When I hit tab, it's going to go away. When I hit tab again, it's going to come back. Okay, so we're ready to actually start building out the functionality of our tumbling mechanic. And for that, we will need the event tick. Where are you? Event tick. And you know what? I might disable our input action fire here for the time being. Instead, just to make it a bit clearer for you guys, I'm just going to get input action. No, actually, we want left mouse button. So we get the left mouse button and make ourselves a new variable. Call this tumble active. Make sure it's a boolean so we can compile it so we can use it. And then alt drag this into the graph here. When we press it, our tumble active is going to be true. And when we release it, it's going to be false. All right, cool. And in fact, if you want to extend this a little bit further, if we want to reincorporate our fire, the fire event, then all we would need to do is just grab our isPaused here and just hook this up here. So if paused is true, then we can go set tumble active when our left mouse button's down. And if it's false, then we can connect back up to our fire blueprint. So we compile that, save it. I'll actually give it a little bit of a test by printing string. So we'll go print string, and we'll print our string just hello if we go through this isPaused is true. So we'll compile. Play it, hit tab, and there we go. So we're getting the hello when we're in the pause. Hit tab again, and now we're shooting as normal without the without the print string. So that's working quite well. In fact, I might keep this. I might just leave that like that. In fact, I might even use our input action fire. No reason why we shouldn't. I just hope I explained that in a good way. And we're ready to build out the mechanics now. So off our event tick, which is where we're going to be setting a lot of our rotation information. Let's just come straight up into a branch. We'll control grab our tumble active. So this is only going to be firing when this is set to true, which is going to be when the fire button is down while we're in our tab menu. Then, if we right click here, we have some nodes here that we can play with. In particular, get mouse X, which is an input axis or an input value. An axis value rather, and get mouse Y. These two nodes will get the X and the Y location on screen of where our mouse actually is, and we can use this in order to affect the rotation of our model. So we'll come straight out of here. We actually want to invert these two, so the model rotates in a way that makes sense. So we'll just multiply them both by -1. I'll duplicate this guy with Control W, hook him up. Then we want to multiply this. So we'll get another float multiplied by float, drag off this bottom pin here and promote it to a variable. This will be our tumble speed, which when we combine, we'll compile it and set this to something, say, something above 0. We'll set it to something like 30. We'll see how that looks, and we can adjust this later if it's not, if it doesn't look good. Then we'll duplicate this multiplier again for the mouse Y, hook this up, bottom node goes to tumble speed. And then we'll right click here and make a rotator. So we'll just go get a normal make rotator node. We're only going to be using the Y and the Z. So I'll just plug those two in. X can stay at 0 because that'll be a sort of weird looking sideways rotation. I don't know if you've ever done any 3D modeling, but you don't really rotate on that forward axis, only on the up and down, left and right. Then out of this make rotator, we want to combine the rotators. So we get combine rotators, and the rotator that we want to combine it with is if we grab our static mesh out of our components here and get the world rotation and just plug this into our A value. Just like that. There we go. And from here, we'll come out of our static mesh again, set relative rotation, and the result of this combine rotators goes into rotation like that. So if tumble active is true, then we'll hook this up and plug it into set relative rotation. And if it's false, we don't have to do anything, but we can come out of here and reset the rotation of our model back to 0 if we really wanted to, but that's entirely up to you. So I'll just put that there. We'll compile this, save it, then hit play. So here we are in game again. I'm shooting quite happily. If I hit tab, here I am with the model, and I can click. Okay, so it looks like 30 is way, way too high. What if we set this down just to 1? We'll see how 1 looks. Ooh, still too huge. I think I know what the problem is. So we'll get rid of this relative rotation. Come out of our static mesh. We'll set the world rotation. There we go. So put this into true. The result of our combined rotators into rotation. And our tumble speed, just so that we can test this out, we'll set this back to 1. Compile that. Hit play. There we go. Much, much better. So we can see actually that our axis there is a little bit weird. We might reverse these two. So we'll go our mouse X into Z and our mouse Y into Y, which you'd think would have been a little more obvious. And I'll bump this up, we'll say a 5 for tumble speed. So then we'll hit play. Much better. Look at that. Now we have a nice little tumbly model viewer. I mean, it's actually backwards. We might not have had to invert that. So we'll just give this a look. Compile that, save it. There we go. Okay, so our left and right is still backwards, so the X, I think we'll have to invert. There we go. Okay, now we're on point. And we hit tab again, we're back in the world, and we're doing really well. Hit tab. Okay, so looking at the ground, we're going to be missing the clip plane there, but we have a little model rotator. So let's clean this up. I'll delete that. Move this up here. And as a bonus, we can actually do something about that clipping in the ground. So we have our plane here, which I'll just go ahead and make visible for the time being. If we change this from a plane, we get a sphere. Just any old sphere will do. This one's probably way big. Reset that back to normal. And maybe 0.75. And we also want to go to our black tint here and make it this two-sided so that we can see inside the sphere. When we're inside it, we can see the tint. We're not going to be culled by the one-sided shading. Then back in our player, I'll grab our plane here. Just make this cover the camera, maybe even a bit further forward, like that. And then our static mesh, if I make that visible again, is probably going to be very, very tiny. So we'll reset that back to, well, 1 is too big. 0.1, 0.2, 0.2 probably. Compile that, hit play. Okay, so that's looking a bit better. We'll grab these both, make them invisible again. There we go. It's all just sort of tweaking things now, making it look as good as possible. And now we have our little tumbler, and if I look down at the ground, okay, so this still might be a little bit big, our sphere. So let's see. We'll drop this to 0.5. Gonna want to make it visible. And we want it to be right over the top of the camera. Let's see, just like that. And our static mesh can come back like this, up a little bit. Then we'll compile, save, have another look. Yeah, so now, well, we're seeing the tint here in every direction. When I hit tab, there's a little gold block. It's a nice size on the screen, and I can click and drag and tumble it around. So that's where I reckon I might call it. If we make these things invisible by default, we'll have a little quick recap here. So the first thing we do is when we hit tab, we check for our isPaused boolean, and if we are paused, we'll go back to unpaused, which means we hide the mouse cursor, show our HUD again, set our ignore, move, and look inputs back to the defaults of yes we can, or rather we're not going to ignore, so the checkboxes are false. Set our pause boolean to false, and then control the visibilities of our plane and static mesh and our gun, and we do the opposite for when the isPaused boolean is false. And the paused boolean is used to better hard code, stopping the player having extraneous input while we're trying to tumble our objects. Then with our fire action here, we check for our boolean, and if we are paused, we can set our tumble to active, if not to false, and go to our normal fire if we're not in our tab menu. Then it's just a matter of on our tick, checking to see if our tumble is active, and then setting our world rotation of our model based on where the mouse is, and we do a couple little calculations there. So we'll do another little look here. it's a pretty cool little mechanic here that you can include in your game. We see it a lot in bigger AAAs when they have like 3D objects that you can tumble look around. Particularly Skyrim, that's the one that came to mind when I was developing this. But a lot of other games do it, and now you can too. So I hope you had fun making this one, guys, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.